Good evening, everyone. Time for another silver update. This is the daily chart of silver provided by netdania.com. You can click on the link below. I've drawn a number of trend lines in here. The primary trend line is going to be the 1250 bottom around July of 2009. You can see we're steadily rising in price. These downtrend lines are, the primary one is going to be the breakout from that primary downtrend, and then of course an adjusted one, and that's important here where we broke out, and then of course the one that reaches the top that we've, and close to this top that we've recently reached. So you can see we're in a very large consolidation pattern. It's important because silver is consolidating. If you remember, during this run up to the very important May 1st SmackDown, if you remember, right before that SmackDown, Jimmy Rogers came out and announced that he would become bearish on silver if it ran straight to $100. Of course, it didn't run straight to $100. It actually hit that 50, or came very close to that 50 high from 1979, and then corrected. We know that it was manipulation. But nevertheless, irregardless of the manipulations, we can see that there's a very serious consolidation going on, and that the price of silver is steadily rising. You have to remember, we came from below $4 to where we're now staying fairly safely at the 30 plus level. So we're looking for the ultimate breakout that is going to take us through all of these lines. A good move to $35 or $37 is going to resolve this gigantic pattern to the upside, and that's what we're waiting for. Now, before we get to the questions of the night, let's jump over to the silver sweepstakes. This is something that we need to put an end to, because it's been going on since the 4th of March of this year. Now, you can see that I designed this so that people would make predictions, and when it hits 401 posts, then the contest is over. There is a file that you can click on here on this link posted publicly that is a encrypted video and file that shows the prices of the winners. So, and you can read the rewards. They're going to be 1 ounce silver, various rounds and denominations. But we really only need about 13 more. You can see when we go to the end of this here that the last post is 387. So we need about 13 or 14 more to, it's going to end at 401. So 14 more to sign up to the forum and post on this thread, and the winners will receive the 1 ounce silver. So let's get over to the questions. We have a couple of questions we need to address. And the first one is from the Silver Cowboy. What form of silver? Hi, Brother John F. Thanks for answering my last question a few weeks back. I appreciate the encouragement. I'm ready to buy some more silver. I have $3,000 to spend, and I was wondering if there's a specific form of silver that is best. I currently have mostly American Silver Eagles, but with a premium at $3 over, should I go with generic bars instead so I can accumulate more ounces? What are your thoughts? Well, I generally, for most beginners, and I don't think this guy's a beginner, but for the beginners, and if he's not, then he might want to rewind and go back to the beginning. For most of the beginners, I tend to recommend where I started, and that is the silver junk silver. And so I pulled up Tulving here. Now, it's quite interesting when we look at Tulving. There's really a large number. You have to be somebody who checks Tulving on a regular basis to see how things are trending. There's really no record. You just have to do it on a daily basis to see what he has. But The thing that really jumped out at me when looking at Tulving was the amount sold out. You can see the BU Canadian Maple Leafs are sold out. The Kangaroo, I'm sorry, we're on gold here. The 40% bags. Now, I had someone ask me today about 40% and whether that's the best deal. Well, it usually is the best deal. I don't happen to like 40%. Now, if you're a coin collector, you remember that the 40% were the coins from 65 through 69, and they only had 40% silver in them. The ones 64 and before were 90%. I really don't like those, but they're sold out anyway. You can see also the 90% half, 50 cent half dollars. Those are sold out. The walking libs, those are sold out. And there's a couple more here sold out. You've got the mint boxes of Maple Leaf sold out. You've got the American Open boxes of Silver Eagles sold out. And so that's not really tight, but that's a little bit tighter than you usually see on Tulving. So Tulving quotes in price above spot. So you can see these coins here. You've got $1.99 for these maples above spot. You've got $2.59 for the Cougars above spot. You've got $2.69 for the Antelopes above spot. And so looking at what Tulving has here, you can see the cheaper ones are 79 cents above spot for the 100-ounce bars. I really don't like 100-ounce bars. They're just too large. So you can see we've got a tie here with the Amark rounds and the Buffalo rounds at 69 cents above spot. And then we've got these 100-ounce bars here. So probably my favorites are going to be the ones available right now on Tulving are going to be these Amark and Buffalo rounds at 69 cents above spot. And I remember you have to buy 500 as a minimum. So if you can't afford that, you probably want to go over to APMEX or Gainesville or Provident or one of the others to try to get something that's close to that. But 69 cents above spot is pretty good. Now, the 90% bags, you can see these are their choice. So when they say their choice, it's going to be a mixture of dimes or quarters. And mostly it's going to be dimes, but there's nothing wrong with silver dimes. I really like silver dimes. I think they're going to be very popular when they're no longer available. So you can see 35 cents per ounce above spot for the 90% bags. This is going to be my favorite on Tulving right now. Normally these junk silver bags go around spot. There have been times when they're below spot. You can see they're 35 cents over spot. So that's definitely going to be my favorite on that one. And if you're just starting out, I would recommend that you look at investing a certain percentage into the junk silver. It's very recognizable. It's U.S. currency, although it's not currently recognized as currency, but it was currency in the past, and it's worn. It's easily identified, and it's not very profitable to be counterfeited. So a lot of people look down on the dimes, but actually the dimes are really some of the best ones you can get, because who's going to counterfeit a silver dime when they're $2 or $3 a piece? So that's my answer to that one. Next question. Stephen Keene, and this is from Daily Double. I watched this video with interest and very much like Stephen Keene. He concluded that the Great Depression was prolonged by a lack of government spending, and government spending during World War II is what ended the Depression. I feel in this case he has come to the wrong conclusion. I wonder if the reason the Great Depression ended is, in fact, the private debt did go down. People lived below their means in austerity for 15 years, especially during the wars. Thus, when the war was over, they had savings. When government spending collapsed at the end of the war, there was fear of a new depression would start. After the war, people had strong ethics. They knew the value of money and avoided debt except to buy a home. Also, the North American continent was untouched by war. We exported billions in war materials and ended up with most of the world's gold. This is what led to the boom years following the war. War is always destructive, and government spending on war does not create wealth. I feel it is a huge myth that World War II is what ended the Great Depression. It is so widely believed, I worry if our leaders will use this as a reason to take us back to war. Well, there's a lot of important points there. The main one that I want to take out of that is that America was essentially untouched by that war. During World War II, most of the fighting was in Europe and Russia and North Africa, and then later in the war it spread to the Pacific and the Philippines and the islands and Japan. And of course China was involved with the Japanese invasion early on. So for the most part, the United States was untouched in World War II. I think that's probably the biggest reason why the Bretton Woods Agreement was able to be made, was that through the Lend-Lease Act and the war spending and all the rest of that, most of the gold and silver flowed to the United States to such an extent that it was easy to convince the rest of the world to follow a gold-backed currency. The dollar was redeemable for gold at a set price. Of course, that arrangement didn't break down until de Gaulle came and demanded his gold in '71, and Nixon broke the agreement, and we went to a straight fiat system. So I think that's going to be the primary reason why the United States emerged as the leader of the free world, was that the war never really affected us, and because of that we were able to leverage our manufacturing for the creation of all of the weapons of war that were required. And then it wasn't that hard to just switch to manufacturing for industrial purposes, and of course there was a boom, and we just took off. But do I think that's going to happen again? No, I don't think that's going to happen again. I don't think there's any reason to bet on that happening again. I think the world is a completely different place. We're going to look at that when we look at the topic of the night. So the main topic of the night is going to be about collectivism. Now, this article that I've chosen here, there are a number of articles I could choose. I chose this one from Mark Perry, and this is about socialism and why it failed. Now, a lot of people talk about how we're looking at the failure of capitalism. I don't agree with that analysis. I've debated Jeff Nielsen, and I don't agree that what we're looking at is the failure of capitalism. I'd like to use a different term, although this author uses socialism, but the term I would use is collectivism. And I believe what we're looking at is ultimately will be the collapse of collectivism. So let's look at this a little bit to understand why socialism failed, and socialism is a failure, and it will always be a failure because it violates human nature. But let's look at this real quick here. Socialism is the big lie of the 20th century. While it promised prosperity, equality, and security, it delivered poverty, misery, and tyranny. Equality was achieved only in the sense that everyone was equal in his or her misery. In the same way that a Ponzi scheme or chain letter initially succeeds but eventually collapses, socialism may show early signs of success, but any accomplishments quickly fade as the fundamental deficiencies of central planning, and that's going to be the key, central planning cannot succeed, emerge. It is the initial illusion of success that gives government intervention its pernicious, seductive appeal. In the long run, socialism has always proven to be a formula for tyranny and misery. Now that's what's coming to the United States. A pyramid scheme is ultimately unsustainable because it is based on faulty principles. Likewise, collectivism is unsustainable in the long run because it is a flawed theory. Socialism does not work because it is not consistent with fundamental principles of human behavior. The failure of socialism in countries around the world can be traced to one critical defect. It is a system that ignores incentives. In a capitalist economy, incentives are of the utmost importance. Now, I would take out this term capitalist because that's too loaded. I would say in a free market economy. Market prices, the profit and loss system of accounting, and private property rights provide an efficient, interrelated system of incentives to guide and direct economic behavior. Capitalism is based on the theory that incentives matter. I would say free market. The free market is based on that. So let's look at prices real quick. Now, a lot of people have criticized me about the silver manipulation. For me, it's a consistent theory that the silver manipulation is actually connected to the socialism or central planning. The people who are suppressing the price of silver are the same people who have non-market interest rates, the Federal Reserve. They're the same people that are bailing out Wall Street banks. They're the same people that are bailing out corrupt unions. They're the same people that are providing for bloated and unsustainable government unions. We're going to see that when we look at some of the other stories. The price system in a market economy guides economic activity so flawlessly that most people don't appreciate its importance. Market prices transmit information about relative scarcity and then efficiently coordinate economic activity. The economic content of prices provides incentives that promote economic efficiency. For example, when the OPEC cartel, and it goes into a lot of things here I don't have time to read, so let's go to profit and losses. Socialism also collapsed because of its failure to operate under a competitive profit and loss system of accounting. A profit system is an effective monitoring mechanism which continually evaluates the economic performance of every business enterprise. The firms that are most efficient and most successful at serving the public interest are rewarded with profits. Firms that operate inefficiently and fail to serve the public interest are penalized with losses. By rewarding success and penalizing failure, the profit system provides a strong disciplinary mechanism which continually redirects resources away from weak, failing, and inefficient firms towards those firms which are most efficient and successful at serving the public interest. Private property rights. A third fatal defect of socialism is its blatant disregard for the role of private property rights in creating incentives that foster economic growth and development. The failure of socialism around the world is a tragedy of commons on a global scale. Incentives matter. Without the incentives of market prices, profit and loss accounting, and well-defined property rights, socialist economies stagnate and wither. The economic atrophy that occurs under socialism is a direct consequence of its neglect of economic incentives. No bounty of natural resources can ever compensate a country for its lack of an efficient system of incentives. And he talks about Russia, and some of this is dated, but let's go over and look at one example. We're going to do two because whenever you criticize socialism on the little guy side, you always get a rebuke that what about the socialism on the big guy side. So I'm going to try to prove to you that collectivism or socialism is a failure on both sides. So let's start out and take a look at a video here. This is a video about what happened to the at one of the Chrysler auto plants after the Obama bailout.
And remember, we saw this day after day after day. In fact, every day we went to the park during lunch, people were there partying. Finally, last Friday, we'd seen enough.
Hey guys, hate to be a buzzkill, but shouldn't you guys be building cars? Don't you guys work out at the Chrysler factory? You know, the government spent a lot of money bailing you guys out, and you coming out here on your lunch break drinking like this? Where are you guys going, man? You gonna go build some cars now, after you had a few beers?
So there's socialism on the smaller scale. You had an $8 billion bailout of Chrysler. Now let's look at socialism on the large scale. This is an article from the New York Post that was posted in 2009. This is damage control. Goldman chief drowning in $16 billion bonus pool. For Goldman Sachs CEO Lloyd Blankfein, an embarrassment of riches has turned into embarrassing riches. Goldman's bonus pool is expected to swell to an estimated $16 billion after what's expected to be another stellar quarter, and Blankfein is struggling to figure out how to pay his employees in a way that keeps them happy while avoiding another round of populist and political outrage like the bank experienced over the summer. So we have Goldman. This is the vampire squid. This is the bank, quasi-bank, that was bailed out with taxpayer money that was involved in bankrupting Greece and arranging to rig the bonds there so that they could be deceptive and get more money from the European Union. Ultimately, we know how that's going to turn out, but Goldman accepted $10 billion in government rescue funds to help it stay afloat last year as the credit crisis roiled the entire market. The bank, however, bounced back sooner than its rivals, leading some observers to think the bank leveraged its government subsidies to churn out bigger profits. So we have government bailouts for the rich. We have government bailouts for the unions, and the principle itself is bankrupt. It is going to bankrupt the countries that employ it. Now let's take a look at Google Earth. This is a view of Google Earth. Now my contention is that collectivism will collapse economies, and although a lot of people contend that capitalism has failed, actually the free market hasn't failed. It's collectivism that has failed. We had that in Russia. We had that in China. And now we have the Communist Party in China. But again, don't attach a lot of importance to labels. The label that we have in America is a constitutional republic. Of course, we are moving rapidly into a police state dictatorship. So labels don't really mean a lot. But nevertheless, China has adopted mainly free market principles. Russia, of course, collapsed and was forced to adopt those. And the rest of most of Asia, except for Japan, is operating under a free market model. So what is left in the world now of socialism is the European Union, Britain, America, and Japan. And it's my prediction that you will see the final collapse of the collectivist/socialist model as these countries, which are now operating more than ever under a collectivist model, begin to collapse under the unsustainable weight of promises that cannot be fulfilled. We know that the Social Security system is a Ponzi scheme that will collapse. We know that the food stamp numbers have reached nearly 50 million. The retirement numbers are 30 and 40 million. The government jobs, I've covered those time and time again. They're the employees of the various state, county, city, federal government levels are all in the process of taking as much wealth as they possibly can. So we're in the process right now of seeing the collapse of the last semi-socialist or collectivist areas. That's going to be Europe, the United States, Japan, and perhaps Australia. When those collapse, the collectivist model will be thoroughly discredited. Of course, that collapse is going to be accompanied by an explosive rise in the price of real stuff, and of course gold and silver are the best real investments you can have, just because of the nature of them, because they are money. So that's what we're looking for, and it's not too far off in the future, because the United States is hurtling towards a collapse, and the fiscal cliff and all of the machinations of the politicians aren't going to make a difference. All of these obligations are going to be reneged upon. What you need to do at this point is to begin to foster self-reliance, independence, and the stacking of physical silver and physical gold, so that you can weather the storm that's coming and come out on the other side successful. And we'll talk to you next time.